fight the power, fight the violence with non-violence. What good is justice if the scales are bad by a criminal government? Think of the dead in Vietnam, think of the dead in Birmingham, think of the freedom we don't understand. A sleeping bed in a stolen land. Chayo! Open this up, bro! Open this up,
I'd beat her. She took me back to the Hyatt House.
I don't want to talk about it.
Hot! Poor, poor, pitiful me. Woo! Poor, poor, pitiful me. Hot! Never mind. Poor, poor, pitiful me. Woo-hoo! Yeah. Poor, poor, pitiful me.
We're back. Oh,
Wow, that's loud, Jim.
it was very loud. You're listening to Planet Green Trees. Still abandoned, but we had a couple of good callers.
Yeah, good segment.
So that was nice.
There'll be more information on Canapalooza as because it's not until the end of August as we move forward.
Right, right.
But it's going to be a lot of fun, and everybody here has declared that they are going. Although some people are planning to stay at a hotel and not camp.
So I've been
but
told.
they will still be there. Steve will be camping, and it'll be lots
I'll
of
be
fun.
camping.
Yeah, Steve's camping.
I got like a 10-person tent I'll be staying in.
So he needs 9 people to join him.
The tents are fine until it rains. I mean, my wife really likes to camp, and I mean, I'm good at like a trailer.
Well, there's one of the 9. Then he only needs 8 more people in the
There
tent.
you go, perfect.
Ready to go.
That's right. That's right. I'll be at the hotel.
2-room tent.
I'll be at the hotel where it's dry and warm.
With the jacuzzi.
Yes, but
They have free breakfast, too.
Deb, you used to
delicious.
work for the TSA.
I sure did.
What would you do if you hadn't been paid in a month?
Well, I'll tell you a funny thing, because when they did hire us to work for TSA, when the government took over those jobs, actually we didn't get paid for about 12 weeks, our first paycheck.
Damn.
And there were some people who didn't get paid for like 6 or 8 months because you had to fill out a timesheet every week. And they were very... I guess for the workforce, they were very complicated, and some people couldn't fill them out accurately. And if it wasn't filled out exactly the way it was supposed to be filled, you didn't get paid. And I knew people who went like 6, 8 months, they just weren't getting paid. So it was very bad. I remember my son and myself existed on like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and hot and ready pizzas.
Because you couldn't get your time card right?
No, mine was fine. It just took them 12 weeks to pay us to get you into the federal system. And, I mean, seriously, and when you work at an airport, people don't realize this. You have to pay for parking. As a federal employee, you don't get free parking, whereas other employees of the airport, if you're working for ramp offloaders or airlines,
They all get to park for free.
they get free parking as part of their employment package. The government employees do not. So that runs at least $5 or $6 a day, plus your gas.
Jeez.
You know, so if you haven't been paid in a bunch of weeks, it doesn't sound like a lot, $5 a day, but that's $25, $30 a week.
I
And
can honestly tell you what I'd do.
I wouldn't be at work.
quit.
Well,
I'm gonna find another
I
job.
wouldn't quit. I'd stay home because you're eventually going to get paid anyway.
Right.
Because I remember when the grid exploded and the lights went out.
Yeah.
I was at work at the airport. I was working for TSA at the time,
Yeah.
and we stayed in the airport for about 6-8 hours, cleared everybody out, and then they sent us home. And we were home because the electricity did not go back on in the airport for probably 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
People could not get back to work. Okay, you couldn't if you didn't have gas in your car. You could
Right,
not
you
get
could not
gas
get gas.
because there was no power. You couldn't pump gas, and everybody who stayed home ended up getting paid for those days they stayed home, and the people who went to work got paid for going to work. So if you stayed home, you got paid anyway.
Oh, see.
So I just stayed my butt at home. But seriously, if you can't afford to transport yourself to work and park your car and eat dinner the night, when you get home from work.
I take back what I said. I would not quit. But I would go get another job.
Well, you get another job. You'll go do something else for a little while.
Until they got their shit together.
Until you
where
can start
get
getting paid. I mean, it's ridiculous. And the fact that we can't get a deal done here
Stupid.
to open the government back up and put the other politics aside for a minute is absolutely ridiculous. And the fact that it's, we're going to move on this wall. We're going to move on this wall, or the government's not opening back up. It's ironic that he's got this whole anti-bullying sentiment flying around now, because it sounds like to me like he's the bully, and he's trying to shove something down everybody's throats. And
Well, he's backing down now because I heard something today about now maybe he'll settle for a down payment on his wall.
Oh, a down payment,
He doesn't
huh?
understand that the whole concept has to disappear because nobody's going to agree to it.
why?
You know who he's not bullying? You know who's he's not they're not allowing to bully him? Is Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah, she's
bullying right back, and he don't know how to deal. Did you
She
see
makes
how
him
flustered
reschedule
he
his little
was?
speech, right?
Did you see how flustered he was in his response? Like, he was shook. She
Yeah.
shook him.
Well, because she has the power to do some things. This
was
is
awesome.
democracy. This is the American democracy. We have a system of checks and balances.
It is.
One guy can't just decide and do what he wants to do.
It is. But I just take issue with the fact that it sounds like people are going to start losing their SNAP benefits next. And
Yeah,
you
I
start
feel bad
talking
for those
about
people.
people that depend on that. I mean, however you feel on the issue of social welfare, there's children out there that will not eat as a direct result of politics, and that shit ain't right.
And they're reaching the
That's not right.
second payday of no paychecks.
Right.
So
That's a month.
many people in this country live paycheck to paycheck. Imagine going without 2 paychecks.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
Even if your landlord says, "I'm going to wait," well, you'd have to. If you have to eat.
Yeah, and especially you got kids, you got to take care of your kids.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's just unfortunate. And I found it kind of ironic because it's in direct contrast to what we're seeing in the state of Michigan right now, where there's actual, some spirit of cooperation on some issues and a desire between the parties to move forward. And in Washington, it just seems to be constantly degrading. But it's just like what we talked about. I believe it was last week, but regardless of our political party affiliation, that the gentleman, and I use that term loosely, who's in that seat today, our president, has behaved himself in a way that no other president has behaved himself. And, Republicans like George Bush Jr., George Bush Sr., Ronald Reagan, they didn't bring the type of chaos and shame to that office. And
We're an embarrassment.
It's horrible. It's horrible. Horrible. But I don't see it coming to an end anytime soon. And I certainly don't see the federal drug policy changing anytime soon. I think they're going to continue to try to convince us that there's movement when there's not. And it's, absolutely ridiculous. It's a huge impediment to us continuing to move forward on the medical front and getting studies done when the government refuses to even earlier than 2020. So there's a chance that we may, in the next election, have new districts. And how cool would that be? That bill, I think, as much as we were all personally aligned with the CRMLA bill or petition, I think the petition to appoint the citizen panel, the independent citizen panel, to redraw the lines was probably more important in a lot of ways. I think we're finally going to have a fair and balanced election process in Michigan where we don't have to worry about these crazy gerrymandered districts. And I do find it somewhat ironic that after we have written proof of transmissions and communications between different party members talking about why they drew the districts the way they did. And they're very specific, and yet everybody still seems to deny that we have any gerrymandering going on the right. It's very, very bizarre.
They're a bizarre lying group. It really is in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, but it's going to come to an end. I'm convinced once the districts are redrawn that Lansing will probably look a lot different than it looks today.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I am refreshed on some of the leadership that has been implemented, and not all of it, but some of it. And I do believe that hopefully the next 2 years is going to be productive for us, and that we'll have a legislature that, even if they don't agree with the tenets of marijuana legalization, that they'll be supportive because they know that the people overwhelmingly passed this and that this is now law in the state of Michigan. And I was going to say, Steve, that back to the drug dog thing and kind of the politicians' perspective on marijuana, certainly the police's perspective on marijuana, I don't believe has changed. We had talked a few weeks back and made comments about some of the things we were seeing in public and how the Michigan State Police said they were going to change their behavior. And, some behavior has changed, but I saw an article online from my local police department talking about